Well, hello. I am so glad to be seen and to look out into the virtual world of the World Wide Web. Give me 1 second to integrate. I'm going to integrate to Facebook today. And then I'll upload it to then I'll upload it to YouTube after I finish. Give me 1 second. All right, so here we go. Folk, it is happening. Turn this off momentarily. I don't get any interruptions here. Okay. Make sure that everything is happening. Make sure that we can see well. All right. Okay. I'm here in front of you. Make sure that everything is happening. Let me make sure that we can see well. All right. Okay. I'm here in front of you. Make sure that everything is happening. Let me make sure that we can see well. All right. Let's see which one I'll pause so that I can actually follow along. Let's see here. And I'm not sharing the screen or anything like that because we are not going to have the traditional format today. Let me get over to my profile. Give me 1 second to get everything in order. I sincerely hope you are all doing well, that you are in great spirits, if you will, the colloquial term, especially considering everything that we are experiencing right now. There's so much that is coming at us from so many different directions. Those of us who are part of the diasporan community and those who stand in solidarity with us, those who I equally consider part of the population that has been disenfranchised, that has been subjected to, great injustice. And they aren't diasporan because they were not part of the slave trade per se, even though there are some historical accounts that suggest otherwise. They are different in one regard because they were indigenous to the North American continent. And actually core to a lot of our African-American ancestry. In particularity, I repeat very proudly that my family is of Cherokee heritage on my mother's side. Okay, so let's see here. And that's what this session will be on, as I alluded to earlier today. I will actually share my screen just to have this post show for just momentarily. And actually, I'm going to read the article because I think it's important. Okay, hold on 1 second. I am not a proponent of any particular news publication except where they publish accurate information and do not participate in the public disinformation campaign or corruption, okay? So that's how I roll. I just roll with folk that are on the right side of justice. I really don't care about your ethnicity in one regard, one specific regard. Don't mistake my words. If you're on the right side of justice, then hey, you all right with me. Okay, so let me pull this up here. trying to find where I'm at here. So give me one more second. And then that way I can pull up. See, what I'm trying to do is have it play without, let's go to Zoom. There we go. So that I can actually see in real time. And then I'm going to share my screen and we're going to share the article and read through it. And then I just wish to share my thoughts with you. And I hope that you will receive them well. And that is a great segue to our mantra, right? Hold on one second here. All right. May I further enlighten and enlarge our collective and individual understanding on the topics discussed in this format. And may I not cause further divide. All right. Time to screen share. Okay. Okay, here we go. I saw this article, right? I saw this article earlier today. And in all seriousness, I was already in the mind frame of still Thanksgiving. Admittedly, the name of this holiday and the aspects of this holiday are easier to fit into our new ideals, our new transformative ideals on equality, or rather equity, right? Inclusivity, right? Because the name Thanksgiving is something that can be versatilely applied, right? That's easy. We can make the shift from viewing it as a negative holiday, and we can make the shift from colonialization, right? Because it's such a popular term when we think about self-improvement and good character, right? Good citizenship, oneness, right? Community oneness. So Thanksgiving, Gratitude Day, easy, right? And then when you're talking about breaking bread with one another, fellowshipping with one another, all these are fellowshipping with one another. All of these are great principles that we all aspire to, right? These are exemplary principles that we aspire to. You know, it's very textbook. So it's very easy in that regard to kind of shift the focus from its origin, right? But there hasn't been a formal renouncing of that history as directly connected to the whole point of the Thanksgiving holiday. That's what I want to see, right? I want to see that. Let's read the article. You know, I'm not very big on apologies that are half-assed. And I feel like right now, the shifting from Thanksgiving to an informally recognized Gratitude Day, or shifting the focus from colonialization to this community oneness and just fellowshipping with your friends and family, it's not enough. It's not sufficient for me. And it should not be sufficient for you, especially considering the fact that those who were most directly impacted, injured even, they speak out every year. They speak out throughout the year about how they feel about this holiday, and they consider it a day of mourning. So then we shouldn't be okay with this. We would have the same expectation of them and have had the same expectation of them given our circumstances during the pandemic and the rise of overt racism, right? So hold on one second. My son is, what's up?
Do you know where my Chinese European promo code is? What?
I think I kept giving it to you, so I think that's thrown away. But give me 1 second, y'all. This is important. So 1 second. Hold on. I'm pretty sure, Asa, that I threw it away because I kept giving it to you and you didn't. Here. It's right here. So you're going to wash your hands after it and clean it off, okay? Okay. All right. So I'm going back. So this is live. Okay. All right, guys, I'm just washing my hands and then you can kind of hear me in the background and I'll be right back. But at least you know I'm super real and this is how it goes in this household. Super real. Okay. Whew. And I'm doing just like everyone else is. He's enjoying time with his friends and it was a promo code that that he received and wants to use it for his online gaming right now. So no worries. Don't consider it interruption. For those of you that if that got under your skin, calm it down, calm it down. I love my baby, right? You should love your children as well. It's not that big of a deal. This is not some formal event. So it's okay. There are times where an interruption would be considered completely inappropriate and disdainful. This is not one of them. Let it go. Okay, so let's go back to the focus, right? And then don't let me get in you, because if some of you are finding that offensive, honey, how do you find that offensive and not celebrating Thanksgiving year after year and basically turning off your conscious, turning off your intuitive self and saying, oh no, let's just go ahead and let's just fry the turkey or bake broil the turkey or whatever you're doing, or cook up the food and yeah, happy Thanksgiving. Everyone has been wishing me a happy Thanksgiving today. And I know the conversation and the path that I can take them on. And maybe they feel the same way. And maybe for some of them, they've decided, okay, I'm just going to say happy Thanksgiving because of course we know that communicates colloquially the best to the masses. But to me, like Indigenous people, that being part of my heritage, literally, I'm not cool with it. It still gets under my skin and it should get under all of our skin collectively. We wanted everyone to see, maybe if we didn't want them to participate, we didn't need them to stand in front of us and advocate for us. We've definitely spoken out about that. We can speak for ourselves. We can advocate for ourselves, but we definitely wanted them to see. And not only see, not so much as empathize, because sometimes empathize is really masked as sympathy. And we're not really, most of us are not for the whole pity thing. We're not for the pity party stuff. You know what I mean? Because the pity party goes both ways. You have people, oh, poor Black people. You don't want that either, right? So I don't know. I don't know if that's what's going on. I don't know if everyone's just trying to play nice. Is that what we're doing now? We're just in a zombie state of just playing nice. We're just Stepford wives. All of us. I mean, I'm using the term to refer to us all as a class of persons, as opposed to gender. Are we literally just the Stepford Americans now? We're just going to walk about and let it be. And since they haven't done anything year after year prior to the pandemic, during the pandemic, Everyone's getting their incremental relief, right? Maybe not everything they want. The act that was put in place to protect and uphold the rights for those of Asian descent, right? Asian heritage. Some very minor incremental change for African Americans and police or policing policy throughout the United States. Nothing sweeping, no sweeping legislation as we've been lobbying and pushing and protesting for. So what about for them? Because reality is this is their home before it was any of ours. Now we have a right to living here and enjoying the rights under the Constitution that were established after their genocide. Like, what are we processing all of this? Are we processing this? You realize that, right? I know sometimes people don't like to use certain words because it makes them, swallow the tough pills easier and makes them not have to really face the reality, the harsh reality of an event. Well, history shows that they were not just taken advantage of. That would be nice. That would have been an ideal outcome as opposed to the genocide that they experienced. Displacement, murder, and so many other heinous crimes. So are we giving thanks on this day? Doesn't that seem a little backwards, like ass backwards? We're giving thanks. And it was rooted in hatred, piracy, even under the guise of patriarchal British entitlement, right? The crown having the absolute authority and power, and funding the explorers who came over and then decided, hey, you know what? We could use this for real to our advantage, keep the crown funding us, terrorize the people over here, let them, see us puff up our chest, use our guns and stuff and be like, yo, you got to go. Don't want to go voluntarily? Then we take your ass out. Like, I'm just, okay. And I know, just like with the history of slavery, there were successful revolts, and then there were unsuccessful revolts. Equally, the same existed amongst indigenous people. But there should not have been even the chance of, the occurrence of a good and about bad outcome from colonialization. There was a way to colonize without doing all the heinous things they did, outrageously egregious things they did, which persist even to this day. I've told you on this channel, there have been other public figures that have brought to your attention the express fact that treaties made by the United States have been broken and broken again and breached again and breached again, even to this day, between America and the indigenous people. Like, damn, they can't even uphold the contract. But yet we still doing Thanksgiving still. Okay. All right, let me read it. And then there's a point in here that I'll also go back to, and I think that maybe this is also why maybe African Americans are not as pressed, because we're good for that, you know, and I'll kind of allude to it now. We're like, well, they ain't pressed, so why we need to be pressed? I just, Lord have mercy. I just hope this is not where we're going, you know? The whole point of my platform is to inspire our collective and individual evolution. Individual first, and then collective. And just because, yeah, there's so many benefits that I can name, but why not just because? Just like my program many years ago, do good just because. Do you need the church to recognize you? You need an award, a leadership award from the community. You need a Webby Award. You need a Pulitzer Prize, Nobel Peace Prize. You need these things, or can you not just maintain good character? I actually posted that yesterday. Can you not maintain good character without religion? Does someone have to beat it across your head so that you'll be a good person every day? Is that what we're doing? Okay, so this was published today at 3:52 p.m. entitled, "What is Thanksgiving to Indigenous People? A Day of Mourning." How do Indigenous people spend Thanksgiving? For many, rather than a celebration of peace and shared prosperity between Native Americans and Pilgrims, Thanksgiving represents the dark shadow of genocide and the resilience of Native people. Every tribe and every individual may have a different way of spending Thanksgiving. Some will gather with their families and share a meal. This is the point that I was alluding to. Exchanging prayers and stories from the rich oral history of Native Americans. Others will fast for the entire day. Now, so that this is fresh on my mind, even though I drink my water so I can come back to it. I'm going to make this point now. If you're African American or part of the diaspora and you're saying to yourself, well, they gather with their families and they share a meal, so then they're not pressed, so then why should we be pressed? You see the difference here for most, because I know there are some families that are not of Native descent, and they equally exchange prayers and stories and give honor to the history of Native Americans in solidarity for their resilience from the dark shadow of genocide and displacement they experienced. However, how and which and ever, there's a great population of African Americans and diasporan Blacks, people of color, who highlight and celebrate the Thanksgiving clapback, the minstrel nonsense, and have absolutely no intention to celebrate or honor Native heritage on this day. So they gather with their families, but only with the intent to act a damn fool. They share a meal with their families only to point out who all can't cook and tease and pretend to eat. I know this. I know it firsthand. Because growing up, these are the type of things that are generational curses. Here I am, we're going to my granddad's, who hands down, I mean, even my mom, some of you see my mom, hands down, they look of Native American descent, okay? And I'm using that term loosely because I don't want to offend anyone, but there are certain physical characteristics. Now, they're not a catch-all, but there are definitely physical characteristics that that Native American or Afro-Natives share with Native Americans or their Native American ancestors, right? Remember, I said this before, stereotypes do have some truth. Where the stereotype goes wrong is when it is overgeneralized, right? For the entire population, okay? Or the population for which the stereotype is intended, right? And we would go over, and I remember saying things like, who made the potato salad or who made the macaroni and cheese? And not ever did we celebrate or honor the heritage of Native people. That was something that was left in the classroom. And I remember it always being told about, this story that, this amicable meeting of the minds of Native Americans and pilgrims, they never referred to them as colonizers, right? Never talked about the process by which they discovered America. There was not ever any discussion about how the land was divvied up. That was the natural ownership, or for which the Native Americans had natural law ownership, right? There was no discussion of why they migrated. No discussion of those things. And of course, that did not take place in my household or amongst my family. And I'm sharing this because we can all become enlightened from these untruths or these stories that have been swept under the rug for so many years. And my family has a close lineage to Native Indigenous people. And I remember my mom showing me pictures and even my granddad discussing it. But generally amongst my aunts and my cousins, it was more about Thanksgiving clapbacks. And it became fun. And as I got older, I realized how minstrel that was and how unloving that was and how that did not promote self-love and oneness in African-American communities, nor the entire diaspora. It's really quite sad. And I'm not trying to make this into a solemn moment, but what are we doing? What are we doing? All right, let me continue on. For tribal citizens, Dennis W. Sotig, I hopefully pronounced that correctly, Thanksgiving is a day of mourning. He says he is a member of the Kiowa Gord clan, an Oke Owinga Pueblo Winter clan, and a descendant of Sitting Bear and No Retreat, both principal war chiefs of the Kiowas. To most natives, Thanksgiving is not a celebration, he says. Natives, particularly in the New England area, remember this attempted genocide as a factual part of their history and are reminded each year during the modern Thanksgiving. He is a writer and cultural specialist at the Smithsonian's National Museum of the American Indian in Washington, D.C. And I'm glad that they sought someone with what would be perceived as publicly verifiable expertise or relevance or clout, as opposed to, even though I would still value the opinion of someone who didn't work at the Smithsonian, it's nice to see that this native is a writer and cultural specialist at the Smithsonian's National Museum of the American Indian in Washington, D.C. So it's not just coming, because a lot of the diasporan group will say, oh, this is just coming from left field. Okay, whatever. This is valid, vetted, valid. So what are we doing? What are we doing? The United American Indians of New England meet each year at Plymouth Rock on Coles Hill to mourn. They gather at the feet of a statue of Grand Sakin, Massasoit, or Massasoit, of the Wampanoag, excuse me, the Wampanoag, and I'm laughing because of my inability right now to put letters together to make sounds and words. The Wampanoag, to remember and reflect in the hope that America will never forget the sacrifices and tragedies of its Native people. One more time. They meet in New England each year at Plymouth Rock. This once told to be historic and profound, and favorably so, landmark in the Americas. And instead it evokes the absolute opposite emotion in Natives. And they meet here every year in the hope that America will never forget the sacrifices and tragedies of its Native people. The real roots of Thanksgiving, rethinking what happened 400 years ago at the first feast in Plymouth. And that's another article which I'm going to link, because I'm going to end this, this session, and it will not be a full hour as normal. And I hope that you will all read it, reread it, because I know you know the stories. And I hope that you will no longer suppress your solidarity. If we're truly resilient, then we have to be resilient in action. Resilience is not suppressing and pretending that something no longer exists if we don't discuss it. That's not apt resilience. Resilience is standing firm against it, speaking out against it, doing what they're doing, speaking up about it. Every year, honoring their resilience and remembering their ancestors. Not ever forgetting the sacrifices and tragedies. Now we'll do 9/11. Never forget, honey, never forget, never forget. But what are we doing here? I'm not trying to compare one to the other and say one is more important, but if we don't get me started now, honey. Don't get me started. Loss of life is important all across the board, but we're talking about something that was horrendous. And yes, what happened in 9/11 or on 9/11 was horrendous. But what do you think the onset? This was this pattern of inhumanity. It was onset by colonizers, not pilgrims, colonizers. Let's get the words right, okay? Let's call it what it is. Call a duck a duck. A colonizer is a colonizer. And it goes on in greater detail, and I'm just going to, it just continues. It's really, really an interesting article. What are we showing? What are we communicating to the kids, Native American and indigenous children? What are we communicating to them? What are we, if you are African American and you have Native American descent as well in your heritage, what are you communicating to your children? Do you want to hear them say that they're breaking the generational curse that you kept going when they get older? Do you want to hear them say that? That would break my heart if Asa said, Mom, I'm breaking this generational curse, when I have my faculties to do it. I have the liberty to do it. Thankfully, that's the one thing that we can control is our mind. That's where our truest freedom lies. I'm the adult. I can maintain good character without someone beating it into my soul and spirit. I can process and conceptualize even if there were no relation at all for my heritage with Native Americans, I would still feel the same way. And it's hurtful. And I am, a couple of generations removed. How do you think they feel? How do you think they felt to hear the lessons being taught in the schools? I don't know what to call the day. I think that it should be left in the hands of Indigenous people, and that they should be given full reclamation of the holiday and decide whether it should be abolished altogether. I think the government should take direction from them. And if they say, hey, we're abolishing it altogether, or we're going to call it this and still have a meal related to it or whatever, because it seems that they are really processing everything with great rationale and reason. Again, because they also meet to have dinner as well and fellowship with their friends and family, but it is with remembrance and in honor of the tragedies, horrific tragedies, right? And sacrifices made by Indigenous people. And sometimes we don't think about those as well. We think about it in, we have every excuse in the world for why slaves committed suicide, right? African Americans, oh my gosh, we can come up with a whole laundry list of excuses as to why. Well, yeah, like the Black Panther movie, it was better to, to jump in the ocean than to be a slave. That's a sacrifice. We don't often want to admit that or think about it in that regard. Similarly, when we think, oh, well, then some indigenous tribes actually did contract with colonizers and gave up their land. So what about them? They gave it up. No, same scenario, same principle here. They preserved their freedom, believing that if we give up this, if we give this to you, will you leave us the fuck alone now? Will you let us have our peace? Will we at least be able to live in harmony? Because they saw the potentiality for the full genocide. Keep in mind, let's look at the definition really quick of genocide, because they experienced multiple deaths, multiple murders, multiple homicides, multiple rapes, multiple. Okay. The deliberate killing of a large number of people from a particular nation or ethnic group with the aim of destroying that nation or group. Okay. So I believe that in the article, it says, hold on, let me go back. It says attempted genocide. Let's go back. Yeah, remember this attempted genocide. I believe that he's saying attempted genocide because they didn't destroy them all, but large numbers were definitely murdered. Let me pull this up too, just really quickly. trying to get to something. That's history.com. I was going to go for some like government records, or maybe they're organized. A population decline that exceeded 90%, the Great Dying. Oof, good gracious. The American Indian Holocaust, known as the 500-year war. So in my strong opinion, and that may be something that they're choosing to assume to celebrate their resilience, you know, the resilience of their ancestors and the longevity and the continuance of their culture, you know, their ethnic group, right? Their people. So maybe they're not using it. They're trying to, you know, or not trying, but they're using positive, the law of positivity. We're going to speak positivity. We're not going to admit to a genocide because there are still more of us, you know, excuse me, we're not going to admit to a genocide or speak that into existence as though none of us survived. But in all reality, there was a genocide. It didn't destroy all of them in truth, but for the sake of the definition, a genocide occurred. I'm gonna tell you. I'm gonna stop here because to me, this is like straightforward and I just can't. So I am preparing dinner, but it is to honor my Cherokee heritage, to stand in solidarity on this day and every other day of the year, not just this day, with Indigenous people of every tribe, of every culture, subculture, and let them know that I stand with them and I agree with them, and I have not forgotten at all. And I will not forget. Excuse me, and I will not forget. I will not forget. Ever. So the whole happy Thanksgiving, I'm rocking with happy holidays right now because, you know, I don't want to be rude, just intentionally rude or, you know, belligerent or, you know, as I'm going about, because some people are, you know, they're about to crack psychologically. But you get me into a conversation. So I may say, oh, you say happy Thanksgiving. I may say, well, thank you. I don't expect it back, but you now know why. Those of you who do not watch my platform, I'm hopeful that you will not start some mess. Why did she say it back to me? Because bitch, it ain't my Mitch, bitch, right? It ain't really a holiday. And real talk, I am of Cherokee heritage. So like, I'm not feeling that. So I'm going to do my absolute best to just keep, you know, a positive mindset and hope that no one, you know, engages me in that way. And I'm going to employ my emotional intelligence to curb all conflicts. And we're still going to enjoy this most deserved day off. All right. So that's it for this evening. I've gone a little bit over, so it was almost a full hour. I'm going to get back to my meal prep and enjoying my son and being thankful for my conscience, being thankful for my enlightenment. And I'm wishing it to you as well, to you and yours. See you next week at 7 p.m. Wednesday. I am Tigress Sydney Acute McDaniel, and this has been yet another episode, another live session of Evolve Weekly. Have a wonderful evening.